Cool, thanks everyone for coming out. I guess I'll start a little bit about me. I've been an iOS developer since 2008. I do actually have fond memories of Objective-C and Interface Builder. I was basically an independent developer working on contract-based apps for companies for, like forever. And then in the last couple of years, transitioned to co-founder at Stadium Apps. I actually write more Rust than any other language these days. But still have a very much a soft spot for the iOS development community, which is where I started, and still do a lot with mobile SDK development, not so much on the like apps you would see on the App Store yourself, the stuff that powers those. So today we're going to talk about a couple of things. Talking about AI today, that's kind of the hot topic. Everyone's curious about it. And we're specifically going to be talking about the foundation models, which are Apple's new framework for on-device stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about first what is a foundation model, why you might want to do on-device AI. And actually, I have curiosity, who has watched any of the WWDC videos on foundation models? Okay, a couple of people have. Okay, it's a pretty even split actually. People who haven't watched it, great. So if you watch the videos, you saw some really nice polished scripted demos. Today, we are not going to do very scripted demos. We're actually gonna pull up some stuff. I have some structure and we'll play with some things, and you might see some non-determinism or maybe even a kernel panic. We'll see what happens. Yeah, kind of exploring what the models really can do right now and how you might integrate those into your app. And then we'll close out with some tips on how you can get started developing today, because it can be a little bit rough. We will not cover whether you should integrate AI or go super deep into the use cases today. That's a philosophical question for you to decide. Today is just about the tech. So first question, what is a foundation model? AWS actually has some pretty good docs on this, so I'm just paraphrasing these. They call it a ML model, so fundamentally it's all machine learning techniques, which is applied linear algebra basically. You take a model, you train it on a broad unlabeled data set, whereas most traditional ML models are with something very specific in mind, where you have like tagged labels, like a bunch of photos, and this is a microphone, this is a phone, this may be an iPhone, there's some Android phone in here probably, I won't tell. And yeah, and it's designed to be performing a wide variety of tasks, not just one specific thing, like identifying whether a photo is of a phone and of what type. Apple has created this framework now called the Foundation Models Framework, and that is just a way to make it easy to integrate with Apple's on-device models. If you've used like the Anthropic SDK or OpenAI SDK, this is basically Apple's version of that and designed to work with their models that are running on your device. Some fun facts about the models itself. They say it's a 3 billion parameter model. For scale, GPT-4o, which is like the worst widely used model from OpenAI right now, is somewhere around 10 times that size. They don't publish stats publicly, but these are like best estimates from industry experts or something like that. On disk size, I estimated it somewhere around 2 or 3 gigs based on the experience of installing the iOS 26 beta. And when you enable Apple Intelligence, then it has to go and download some models and it needs disk space. So I just did a quick snapshot of what my device reported usage was before and after. And so it's somewhere around there. Caveats, obviously, the iOS settings view doesn't always update right away with exact information, but somewhere around that ballpark. Notably, it's actually not distributed with the base OS. It's something that you have to download. And it's also language specific. So yeah, that was my response too, because a lot of models are intentionally, they call them like cross-language models nowadays, but Apple made a decision which I think is actually good in hindsight, and we'll see some of the edges of the model as we get into some live coding here. but yeah, they decided to keep it language specific. So in the beta right now, the only language that's supported is English, and if you don't switch your phone to US English, then you'll have a very frustrating debugging experience wondering, where the heck is this model? So why would you actually do this? We already have the Anthropic APIs and OpenAI and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there are actually some companies, mine is one of them, that really does care about user privacy. There was a funny incident in retrospect right around the time when ChatGPT started getting popular. I think this was a year and a half ago or something. And Samsung employees were using ChatGPT heavily. And at that time, then OpenAI was very liberally mixing user inputs with their training sets and ended up accidentally leaking some Samsung trade secrets. And yeah, if the data only stays on the device, though, then that can be a nice value proposition for your users, particularly if you're selling in the EU, where there's like GDPR regulation and things like that, and just generally like more privacy conscious. Other cool thing is this works offline. You don't need an internet connection. To use the Claude API or something, you need to have an internet connection. And if your app needs to work in remote places, maybe that's not a great assumption. So you may want to try using the foundation models in that case. There's also no external dependencies. You're not depending on someone's API that's hosted on some server that you don't control. So that removes a risk factor. The caveat is that the user does need to have Apple Intelligence enabled on a supported device in a supported language, which is actually not very far back. When I agreed to give this talk a month ago, I didn't realize I didn't even have a capable device without wiping my MacBook and installing the beta. So yeah, you have to have an iPhone 15, I think, or newer, and I forget the iPad versions. And then, yeah, another reason would be cost. If you've ever tried using the Anthropic models, those can get pricey really, really fast. I talked to some developers who are using this for like triaging bugs and Jira tickets, and they're spending like $50 a day in API credits. It's not cheap. So if you're trying to do something and cut some costs, then this is definitely a consideration. So what can it actually do aside from the WWDC demos? Despite being very scripted, their billing of things was actually pretty honest, I think. The use cases that they list are things like summaries. So you take a short text message and summarize what the content of it is. Classifying things into categories. Tagging. Revising existing content. So you've got a short email draft and you want to make it sound better. This is basically things that they designed it for. So it's actually smells a lot like a classic ML model, because most of these tasks are things that you would previously have just trained a model for. But they give you one general model that you can use without having to go and train your own. I guess I just read my notes in advance. Whoops. To be clear, it is not aiming to replace ChatGPT or Claude. Like the model's like a tenth of the size. It's not even close. But there's still plenty of room to innovate with this, with like tools and things, which we'll get to in a minute. We're iOS devs, so we're actually used to working under resource constraints. That's like part of our job description. We have to be very careful about how apps are when they're running in the background, things like that. You can't approach this as if you are integrating with a ChatGPT style model. You have to approach it with that perspective of you have very limited things that you can do within the constraints that Apple has given you. And now for the fun. Let's try some live coding and see how things go here. So I apologize in advance for the setup. The iOS 26 beta does not support mirroring, or it's broken. So I'm trying this QuickTime sharing, and we'll see how things work. So I've got some code up here. If you want to look at the boilerplate and stuff, Apple's docs have a good example. I'm going to try and give you the Cliffs Notes version of how you would actually use this thing. So I've set up a simple app here. It's got just a single Swift UI view. I would love to demo playgrounds, but they're broken. Yeah, so to start things off, we have a language model session. You need to give it a model. I think the only option is a default model, but we can make a couple of changes to this in a moment, maybe. System language model and autocomplete's broken. We'll just use .default for now. Say it again?
I think you have a typo.
I have a typo?
Now every time it initializes this view, which is very often, you create a new session. You preserve a state of a session.
Oh yeah, this is terrible code, by the way. This is basically a playground that isn't a playground. Do not judge my terrible SwiftUI coding practices. It is entirely to get output showing on the screen. So you set up a session. As Clement just astutely pointed out, you should actually probably make this a state variable because you want this to be long-lived. You have the model configuration, which is basically just the default right now, and you have these guardrails. Guardrails are Apple's like safety constraints. There's absolutely no configuration, so don't go looking for it. The only option for that is default. And then you can also do some instructions, which we'll play with in a moment here. The core of your interaction with things is this session.respond to prompt flow. So the session has this method respond, and you give it some text input mostly. Then when it's asynchronous, I won't also go into SwiftUI stuff here because that's not the point of this talk, but you can actually stream responses back from the model. So for large responses, or when you have a struct whose fields are going to get progressively filled in, you can actually stream this back, and because latency could be 5-10 seconds or something. So yeah, they've done some interesting things there that I haven't really seen with any other framework. So like props to Apple, they've actually done a pretty thoughtful job with the API design here. So let's run this and see what it does. Non-determinism. How will the dice fall? Loading. Okay, whew. Passed the first test. The capital of South Korea is Seoul. In a previous beta, I actually got that this was violating the safety rules of the guardrail and saying that this was potentially unsafe or something. Oh man, this afternoon I ended up getting it to do another one where it was like, I cannot respond to this because it may harm the people of South Korea or something. It was, they have a little bit of work to do on their safety guardrails, I think. Let's play now with the instructions a little bit. So one of the parameters you can give to the language model session constructor is this thing called instructions. These are supposed to be like, okay, so instructions are something that you feed to the system beforehand. And then the prompt can be either user input or your input. The instructions are supposed to take precedence over the prompt, but that doesn't always happen, and maybe we'll get to see that in action here. So I'm going to tell it always respond in rhymes and see if it obeys or not. Oh, response may contain sensitive or unsafe content. Oh, I wonder what that rhyme was. That's not safe.
It's funny, it's safe, right? Say respond safely.
Yeah.
Oh, respond safely in rhymes. Please shout out anything that you think would be entertaining or you want to see happen, and I will do it. Respond in rhymes safely. We'll see what happens. Oh! Whose idea was that? You get 50 points, yeah. Seoul, the capital of South Korea, where history and modernity go hand in hand with its bustling streets and mountains nearby. It's a vibrant city, full of life and pride.
Is it the rhyme? Where's the rhyme?
I don't know. I haven't got it to give. I've tried this like 100 times, and I haven't actually gotten it to give anything that's a rhyme. It will usually substitute something vaguely poetic for a rhyme. It's a small model, so yeah. Anything else fun here? Previews, by the way, will not work on your current Mac. It also doesn't work in the VM, but I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, back to the slides for a moment. Which desktop was that on? Oh no, I was gonna add one more thing before we get back to that. Okay, let's go to this other folder here, guided generation. So one of the things that Apple hit on pretty heavily during their WWDC talks was this thing called, they're calling it guided generation. Basically, it means tell the model to give me back data in a structured format that I can parse. They're not the first to do this, I think. I think both OpenAI and Anthropic have at least something kind of working for this at various stages. Apple's does seem to be the most advanced or the best when it comes to doing this. Yeah, let's take a look at that in a second. The task that we're going to try to do here is we want to take an address and break it out into its constituent components. So I want to get the house or building number, the street, country, zip code, things like that, all in separate things. You could ask a model like ChatGPT to please give me JSON, and it may or may not give you valid JSON back. I see more markdown errors than JSON errors, but JSON, actually, I've had a lot of issues with JSON escaping with Claude models. Apple claims that they have solved this. In my experience, they mostly have, but there are a few bugs, and you'll find out that they're still actually using JSON under the hood, which is funny. So let's look at how we would accomplish this. We're going to accomplish this with a struct that has this generable macro applied to it. That's a bit of a mouthful. It basically means it's an adjective for this thing can be generated. And it lets you define a struct, and you can add these annotations called guides to the fields. I think all the ones I've done here are strings. Maybe I should have thrown in a numeric field or something, but yeah. Well, I can actually tell it to... Postal codes are not actually numbers, but we'll pretend that they are. In Korea they are. In Korea they are. Let's do that and then see how I broke my demo. So yeah, you can give a description about this. The description is in plain English, and this is fed as context to the model. One maybe non-obvious side effect of this is that this will eat into your context window. If you've ever used ChatGPT and suddenly after 5 or 6 messages, then it just started going like nuts and sounded like it was a toddler again and had totally forgot what you were talking about. This is basically the context window overflowing, and so the model is kind of reset and forgot what it was talking about. Apple's models will tell you when that happens normally, so at least you know what's happening. But yeah, this is something that you need to keep in mind. You can't write descriptions that are super long.
One question.
Yes?
How do you figure out these things, right? Numbers, dates, so maybe in this case you already know it.
Yeah.
So
that's the point, actually, is that the point is that you want output that is structured in a particular format. So like Clement's example of like postal codes, like I know there's never going to be a postal code with a letter in it. So I'm going to say this is an integer and constrain it more.
okay.
And so most of Apple's built-in types, most of the Swift built-in like foundation types are supported out of the box. Not all, but most, like date, for example, is not supported. But yeah, string, integer, floats, things like that.
It seems like it's true that Swift is being invaded by macros.
Yes. Yes. I have mixed opinions on that. In some cases, it's actually made a massive improvement. Like the observable macro is way better than the combine observers and stuff before. That was like just a really, really complicated way to express things. So I'm glad that it has it, but maybe I should do a talk on macros in a couple of months. I've written some Swift macros myself, and it's not a very pleasant experience.
It has to be some package.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be a separate Swift package. You have to have this weird structure to it, and every time that you go and build and the macro like package is changed, then you'll have to say like trust and enable the macro in Xcode before you can build it. So it's like user account controls in Windows all over again, and everyone's just going to be conditioned to click the trust button. But honestly, in this case, I think that, trying to be positive here, I actually think that this is a really good use case for macros. There are some bad ones, but this is actually a really good use case. And since it's written by Apple, you don't have that trust and enable thing, because obviously they never write some unsafe code. Any other thing I had in my notes here? yeah, it gets embedded in the context. Internally, it actually coerces the model into formatting its responses JSON, and I've seen some funny failures. Yeah, arrays. You can also have the way the guide macro works, like what's valid depends on the type. So for an integer, I could say like the integer has to be like greater than 0, or the list has to be exactly 4 items long. And you can put these constraints on it, and anything that doesn't match that will either be like nil if it's an optional type, or an error if not. Okay, so back to the code actually using this. So we're going to try to convert the address 101 North Main Street, Greenville, South Carolina 29617 into this tagged address struct. The way that we do this is we're still using session respond to prompt, and we're adding this other keyword argument generating and giving it the type of the thing to generate. So let's hit play and see what happens.
Is there any special performance for the thing that is generating, like a protocol for
Sorry, say that again. For the
is there like a special protocol that
like string or something?
Like a hashable or
yeah, I think there is. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Sorry. I'm not sure if it's possible to conform to this for. No, it is possible to conform to this for user types. Watch the deep dive into foundation models WWDC session. They talk about, they call them like dynamic schemas or something like that. And you can basically say like, yeah, I want to come up with whatever, and it's a custom name type. So that would be the way you do it. I'm not sure if you can just say, implement this protocol for date or something though. Yeah. I forgot to change what we are running. We are not running the simple prompt view, we're running the guided generation view.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Can you return the result only with the raw string, not like can you return it like
yes, that's what we're doing here with the generating bit. I'm turning this into a result here just for display in Swift UI. That's the only reason why this is a string here. We'll get to another case in a moment with tools and how those work, and I have not figured out a way to, and there is a protocol in that case. Hold that thought for a moment. Okay, so this, wow, this actually parsed it entirely correctly this time. Sometimes I will see it not get the N, the directional, in North Main Street. Most of the time it gets the rest of the stuff right. And changing it to a integer worked as expected. So that's cool. Good question. Good question. Let's see, what did we have on the struct? I did not have a state field. I'm going to add a state field. And South Carolina. Yeah.
This should now just work.
Yes. Obviously, we can't call it district. We'll call it state. Let's see what happens. And that's how I added the rest of them. We'll see if it works.
Oh, yeah.
State SC. There we go. Woo! Congratulations, Foundation. You have completed a task that a toddler could. Yeah. Great. Okay, let's do some more fun with this one. If anyone else has any ideas, by the way, then please. Yeah.
Have you tried using the model to generate those kind of structs? For example, like Figure.js, if we wanted to generate mock data, but you wanted to use the model to generate the fake data?
Ooh, I have not tried that with the foundation models. I use ChatGPT and similar for that all the time, though. Yeah. That's a really good idea, though. Yeah, that's actually okay. Let's try that. Let's try that. Right. That's a really interesting idea. That's a really good idea. Let's try this. Okay, I'm gonna try to prompt it to give me a random address.
Maybe it's gonna be a guardrail.
We might hit a guardrail, yeah. And just keep it simple. Give me a random address. Let's see.
But it's weird because it's a classifier. What can classifier give you a random?
I don't know. We'll find out. There we go. 24, Pemberton, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. So it likes Australia.
So it only works with US English, but it shows Sydney.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a US English specific model. The beta does not include any other model. Yes. Yeah? Yeah, regen?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's regen, yeah.
How would you integrate a button for?
Yeah, I just couldn't be bothered. I spent all my time
US?
building
Okay.
the mess here. Okay, interesting. I think in both cases it hasn't generated a district.
Doesn't make no.
Give me a random address that sounds like it could be an NYC. Let's see how much it knows. I'm throwing in slang abbreviations.
Oh wow. Yes. Pretty good.
That's pretty good, actually. I was hoping it would generate me a district, but it hasn't yet.
Specifically Manhattan.
Ooh, good idea.
So where was it that you specified the struct that it has to conform to?
Ah, yeah.
Your generator.
Respond to prompt and then generating. Yeah, and then that has to be a generable struct.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. We got Manhattan. Hey, let's try Seoul.
Is this someone else's case?
Yeah, I do. Great use case.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I change the model? Can I change my custom model?
Okay.
If I want to change my model, my
Yes.
own model to my own model, can I change it?
Ah, no, you can't. You can't supply your own model. It's only Apple's built-in models. You can do something called an adapter to get your own data in there, but it's not quite your own model. You would need to come up with your own. Like Apple actually does have some frameworks for running pre-trained models on device. Like that's not new. They've had that for a very long time. They just haven't distributed their own with. Like there's tools distributed with Xcode for I think like 5 years now for doing like image classifier training and things like that.
Where I can find Apple supporting models?
Apple support?
Yeah, model that Apple can provide.
It's only Apple's model. It's called the Apple Foundation model. It's a model that's bundled. It's a model that's downloaded by the operating system when you enable Apple Intelligence on a compatible device. So there is no like selection of models. You can't pick which model you're using. It's just Apple's. You have the Apple Foundation model. That's it. Yeah.
Can you fine tune their model?
I think that would be what the adapters use cases for. Also, presumably instructions you can use to fine tune somewhat. I wouldn't really call that fine tuning. I think the adapters thing would be what you're looking for.
Can you remove the sounds line? Because I think it's really getting creative now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 100 in a row. I don't think that's not
Sorry, what do you want it to be?
You can remove sounds like.
Ah,
So it's like you want to.
Ah. So just like insole?
Yeah.
Okay. That was an attempt at trying to circumvent the guardrails prematurely, but maybe it's not needed. Hey, there we go. Okay. It really likes 1, 2, 3. It really likes 1, 2, 3. And it also likes the rich people in Gangnam and Songpa.
Postal code.
This one has 0.
Okay.
If you want something for generating test data, by the way, well, not for generating test data, for this kind of thing where you want to take a bunch of random input and make sure your app still works, you should check out the concept called property testing. Basically, you define things like this test function will take a non-zero integer, and it will call your test function like 1,000,000 times with any non-zero integer randomly generated, and then you have some assert in there saying that like it doesn't crash or it returns some instead of none.
Can you supply multiple structs to the generating like an array of them so you could have like various outputs or?
I don't think so, but you can supply a enum or like a nested struct. You can even do recursive structs. They actually in their demo show how you could do a recursive struct. So recursive being something that references itself. Like you could even have like an address that has like, you know, let's call it like let's come up with an address scheme where you can have like units within buildings, and you want to represent those as like still an address too. So you could have like address as tagged address, then you could have a units array of stuff in there. Yeah. Yeah.
So, are we talking about only foundational model, or have they released some SDK also, so we have to confirm those guidelines, or we can just use as we want with Swift or anything?
Yeah, you can just use it with Swift or, well, I think it's only with Swift or Objective-C maybe.
SDK, right? They don't have any guideline, or we can just use like any other model.
No.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. It's built into like it. Okay, let me show it. So like the import is import foundation models, and that is something that is available only on iOS and macOS 26 plus.
This question you were asking, can we use more struct to generate the data? That's like programming part. There's nothing to do with the model.
Right. That's not to do with the model specifically.
We give a prompt to model, and we get the output, and as we want, we can just get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me show that a little bit. Okay, this isn't going to work very well. I'm going to pull up the documentation for system language model, if I can find it, because no one has indexed this very well. Let's try. It's definitely not the first result on Google either. Okay, okay, here we go. Foundation models. So system language models, since the built-in autocomplete is not working, there are a couple of constructors. One is use case, which we will look at in a second. There's two, it's just general and content tagging, and I haven't actually used content tagging yet, and we may see why in a moment. Loading and using a custom adapter. This is what I was just talking about for doing more customizing. Okay, so it uses PyTorch. So okay. Yeah. So this is what you would do if you want to like go serious and customize things for your use case. This is the way that you would do that. I guess while the documentation is open, is available, which don't use that. That's not giving you nearly enough information for most things. The availability enum is useful to know about, because since it only supports very recent devices, it's quite likely that you will have users who don't have it supported yet. So this will give you pretty detailed reason. Like, for example, they could have a supported device, but Apple Intelligence has not been enabled, and so you can use this information as a developer to tell them, like, hey, go to your settings and turn on Apple Intelligence if you want to use this particular feature. And then device not eligible, that means that the device doesn't support Apple Intelligence at all. And model not ready is kind of in the middle. That means that Apple Intelligence is enabled, but the models are not available, basically meaning they haven't been downloaded yet. And unfortunately, they don't have an error code for this yet. I hope that they do eventually, is you're not using a supported language, because I had my phone set to Korean. And so like half of this room, if you go and try this, then you won't be able to do it until you switch your phone to English, which is really annoying. And I hope that they communicate that better to developers in the future. Okay, back to sharing this. Let's go and try a few. Well, first, let's try switching it to. We've kept the prompt the same. or we've kept the instructions the same. The only thing we've done here is change the use case of the model to content tagging. And in my previous attempts at using this actually made things significantly worse. We'll see. I'm guessing that's just a beta issue that'll eventually get resolved, because this is exactly the use case for content tagging. And it is chugging. Or something. Oh no. Is it actually doing anything? Nah, it's just sitting there idle. It's just chilling. I've had that happen once or twice. Let's try rerunning.
Is it possible that the prompt has nothing to tag? That's why.
Huh?
Is it possible because the prompt is give me a random address and so, but there's nothing to tag?
That's a very good. That's a very good point. It may be that my code. Well, it should. In this case, it should. Like it should overwrite result. Let's try with an actual classification prompt though.
It's a bug.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think are beta bugs. Like just yesterday, Apple dropped beta 4, and it resolved like I was actually worried that I wasn't going to be able to do a good demo today because there were some things that were like really, really terrible. Like everything was a safety violation, like decoding an address is a safety violation. Yeah, it doesn't look like it likes that. It's just not in the mood to do content tagging right now. So normally it would give me a guardrails violation or something nonsensical like that. So content tagging is still a little bit iffy. Let's try switching back to this, and okay, we're still good on that. Okay.
The lesson
Yeah.
here is that if you use content tagging, you always have a fallback to a folder.
That's a really good takeaway, is always have a fallback if you're, actually just always have fallbacks, period. Okay, I guess I don't need this long of a prompt anymore. Let's try this one. Let's try a Korean address, because remember the model is specifically a US English model, but it was generating addresses in Australia for us. Oh, may contain sensitive or unsafe content. Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll say all addresses are provider safe.
Yeah. Nah, not happening.
It's not about content. It's
Yeah.
about policy, but don't have the map and address policy. It's just, okay, don't want to do it.
Yeah, apparently. This one used to work. We'll see if it works right now. Obviously, it's non-deterministic, so yeah, it's your Korean addresses are safe if you input them in Korean. Yeah.
It's weird that city is Mapo, which is wrong.
Yeah.
District is Mapo.
Ooh, what's hilarious about that? Yeah, district is Seoul. Like what? Yeah.
What if you try to translate the English address to the Korean and then try and then from
Translate an English address to Korean.
the previous prompt. Right?
Ah.
Yeah. On the previous prompt. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, just this one. Oh, that is this one. It's 서울마포구 동교로 146. It's the same. The only difference is I previously had this. It's the same address.
Ask model to translate it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
Can you translate it?
I don't think it can translate. It's not that. Anyways, we're running out of time in pizzas here, so let's try and land the plane here.
I had a question
Yeah.
about the beta.
Yeah.
So if you want to like install Xcode 26-bit, use like Xcodes or something like that, but you have to change your operating system.
No, you don't need to change your operating system. Just run it on what's Sonoma. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so zooming through the last part here, tools I think are actually the most exciting part of that because that lets you bring your own, not necessarily knowledge, it's more of bringing functionality into the model. So a tool is just it's an industry term that means like some code. In this case, it follows an agreed upon interface, which in Swift is a protocol, and some metadata about how the LLM can interact with it. You may have heard about this like MCP buzz lately, maybe even used it.
It's the same tool.
MCP, exactly, it's the same tool, and MCP is just a standardized way for models to discover new tools that are available from some web server. Standard IO, I guess, is the main one. So yeah, tools are what back that, and I'll show you how to do that in Swift code. This enhances the LLM's capabilities because you can give it current information, like LLMs don't have any clue what time it is. Some of them have a date in their system prompt or something, but they don't know what time it is. You can give it events, you can give it domain knowledge, personalized info, or make API calls.
So
Yeah.
it's about it's kind of the MCP tools you are building for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like cucumbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you know what tools are in an MCP sense, it's exactly the same thing. You just don't have that MCP wrapping around it. Instead of having a fancy, client-server thing to discover it and host application, whatever, it's like, I'll show you the code in a minute, but it's like literally instantiate this struct or this class. LLMs are magic and unknowing, you guys know that. And tools are cool because they can actually reduce hallucinations by a lot. If you're using like Claude or the other models, they will pretty quickly go into hallucinating if they just don't know what something is. And just giving it a tool that says here's how you get information about this thing, that will pretty much solve that every time. So more live coding. Let's go bring up the app view again, and we'll go into our last demo, which is the tools. And before I do that, I will remember to switch to the right view. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do here, first I'll go back to just a normal session, and I'm going to prompt it by saying, what time is it in Estonia, and see what it gives back. What it should give back is, I don't know what the time is in Estonia. We'll see if we get a funny variation or a safety violation. I'm sorry, I cannot provide real-time information such as current time. You can easily check the time in Estonia by searching online or using a clock app on your device. Thanks, that was actually helpful.
Sassy.
Yeah, it's a bit sassy. Yeah. Sassy in a polite way. I like it. So just like instructions was a thing that we could give it, we can also give it tools. So I've given it two tools here, course geocode and get current time. These are pretty simple. They just have to conform to the tool protocol, very obviously named. You need to give your tool a description, just like if you've used MCP servers. Every tool has a description. Apple recommends keeping these very concise. They say about one sentence due to context limits. Again, you're working on a embedded device, basically. Then I probably actually don't even need these now that I realize it. We'll try getting rid of those in a moment and see how things change. So the arguments for this is like the input that the model is supposed to give it. So it's kind of going the other way around. Previously, we were using generable to get structured output from the model. In this case, well, it's telling the model you need to generate structured output, but then feed it into this tool. So the model has to put things in a struct format. Internally, the magic is it's actually JSON, and then using Swift serialization for that. So we call it with so the call function, this has to return, I forget what the protocol name is. I was supposed to put that in the notes here. It has to be a type of conforming to some protocol. Dates are not one of them, so I have to give it a string. And yeah, you can give it natural language output. So what I'm giving here is I'm doing a time zone lookup from the Stadium Apps time zone APIs with latitude and longitude, and then giving the current time and whether or not there are any special offsets in effect. Course geocode is basically the same thing. Very constrained use case for the country, city, state, etc. And that just does the same thing, formats the output. So now let's run it with the tools enabled. And if things are working, and they don't always, then it will realize that it has two tools. One to get the, yeah, I've had this happen about half a dozen times already, where it says it needs the current latitude and longitude, but it doesn't know where to get it, even though there's a tool right there that will give it.
When you use the instructions, say use books,
Ooh, that's a good idea. Let's try it. Let's see what the instructions do. Hey, if you ask harder, and it will work. And yeah, that is
Man, it looks stupid though, right? If you're providing tools, you should use this.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And the time is it's 2:14 in the afternoon. Yep.
Information for safety and for
Yeah.
We should try
Huh?
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Trick question. There we go. Yep.
what if you put like a country or area?
Yeah, like he was just suggesting Antarctica.
Russia.
In Russia, okay. Russia has multiple time zones, or they just have one? Okay. I know China does like one. Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's see if it knows enough to know that Russia has multiple time zones, or if it picks Moscow or something.
I think it should, yeah.
So it picked. Okay, so what it did was it picked the centroid of Russia. So somewhere in the middle of Russia.
Can I ask, what
Yeah.
time in St. Petersburg?
Yeah.
What is the landmark in there? What is the landmark in there? I want to know. I want to know the research from there about the landmarks and.
The tools don't have information about that, so it'll probably just say like, yeah. Well, it'll probably actually just rely on general knowledge in that case. What is a famous landmark in St. Petersburg? I think I spelled that right. I don't know enough about St. Petersburg. Oh, and because we told it to use tools to get the current time, it gave us the current time as a bonus.
Check for Seoul. Wonder what's the famous landmark.
Yeah,
Is it Namsan Tower? Or?
Sensitive.
it's probably going to be something random. Let's see. Namsan Tower, you got it! Woo!
No time.
No time.
Yeah, there's no time. Yeah.
Ignoring the
It's ignoring the instructions, man. Yeah. What I've found is that if you add that to the prompt, it will do it every time. But with the instructions, Apple claims it's supposed to be higher priority, but kind of mixed in my experience. So hopefully that'll be fixed in a later beta or something. Okay, cool. Back to the slides, and we'll finish things up because yes.
May I see the RES result please? How
The result struct? Yeah, so there is no result struct in this case. We actually just used a string and then the model.
Course geocode, you will have some.
the landscape doesn't describe
Course geocode.
The course geocoding. I construct a string using some cursed 9th level wizard spell here. Basically, it turns it all into a there's three equals and new lines on either side separating different results because it can return multiple, and then it puts out the latitude and longitude.
There is no such random escape construct that is like a description there is, but there is.
The description is here. Yeah. So,
what I
yeah.
mean, there is random escape, do something to describe how the result of that. There is not something, but there is a nice random escape. What is nice place there is. Yes, basically was a response.
Yeah.
But there is no such random escape.
Correct. So that was the model not using the tool, but drawing on its general knowledge. So it had been trained with wide, unstructured information, and it found this museum in St. Petersburg or Namsan Tower in Seoul.
That is actually intelligence works.
Yeah,
That is-
yeah,
that is
yeah.
additional
Yeah.
question that is, happening that is proper to that question.
Yes. So Apple. Yeah.
Major question is time zone, one time.
Mhm.
But today, the time as well as other question, that is landscape, what the city landscape is, that is described in the response that is.
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And my question is, actually the major question was the time zone.
Yes.
Time zone, what time is it now? The 4 hours
Mhm.
here in Russia, West Estonia. But additionally, there is what the landscape.
A landmark.
And
Yeah, that is, but there is no such thing the landscape description here.
Mhm. That's correct. And so it will not call the tool to try and get. It's not going to try to call the course geocode tool to get the landmark information.
There is an additional question that cover the foundation model framework.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The foundation model framework has. It's like ChatGPT. It's a broad, general knowledge model that they just gave it some massive like library of information, like Wikipedia and a bunch of other things like that.
So
It's like the model understand itself whether to use the tool or not.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
But there is a kind of like that answer description. There is a certain property that it should be, and then the question, the answer is responsive to the property. And the
It doesn't verify any of that information. I think it. So I think you're asking if.
You should be ready for that answer to take, to contain the question, to respond. You should be certain phrase to contain the landscape.
I don't think it's that advanced, and it's not able to. It's not even trying to say. It's not trying to look for specific phrases necessarily, or to verify that the tool output matches what you say, or anything like that.
Anyhow, but anyhow, that the foundation model framework cover that question. Addition to
Yeah,
the property, what is landscape in
you don't need to do anything special. That it will try and fall back on the general knowledge in the foundation model if a prompt doesn't seem relevant to any particular tool.
So the models they are trained on a snapshot. So like, this model might have been trained like let's say 2 months ago. So it doesn't know what changed in this 2 months.
Yeah,
So it will not answer any real-time questions.
yeah. It will either not answer or it will just make up something. That's yeah, and that's why that's like the main use case for tools. So yeah.
Would you slow down?
Yes. So these are the arguments that the model is expected to give to the call function. So the model knows it should just give a query with the name of the place. It knows what to expect in the output by the description. And the call function goes and does, in this case, a geocoding operation and just returns this string, which is place name, latitude, longitude, and then a separator. And I didn't have to tell the model that I'm using this, new lines and equals thing. It just figured out that this is probably separating two different things because one says, Thailand, one says Tartu, one says Solo, one says whatever. Okay, so a quick review of tools. Tools let you add functionality that the LLM can use. You are in control of the code. You can write whatever you want in there, and you should probably be thinking very hard about safety. So like if BetaShares is using this, they probably don't want to just like randomly go and buy someone's some shares on someone's account or something like that. So make sure that you have the appropriate safety checks involved. Some tips for tool authoring. This is not specific to Apple's models, by the way. This is general. So if you're building an MCP server or something like that, this also applies to you. You should keep your tools simple. Don't build a Swiss Army knife tool. You probably don't know what 2/3 of the tools in a Swiss Army knife actually do and why you would use those. Similarly, if you're a human and you walk into a tool shed and you've got 300 tools, you might non-deterministically pick tools and you might not necessarily pick the right one for the job. But if you just have a small toolbox of 20 tools that you know how to use well, that's going to do a whole lot better. Same principle applies with AIs, but like times 10 in like OpenAI or Anthropic, and times like 100 in the Apple Foundation models. If you try giving it 5 tools for one session, you're probably going to have a bad time. You should probably try and set up a session that is scoped for the specific task that you're trying to do. Spend a good amount of time on the structure. It's just like if you're designing a public API for a library, you're now doing the same thing for a library that is not consumed by a human, but by a very limited capability model. So you need to spend an appropriate amount of time on the structure and make sure that you get your types right and the naming and the descriptions. Descriptions matter too, as I said. And yeah, tailor the tool set to the interaction. So how can you actually get started today? This will be quick. Question in the back, do you need to run macOS Tahoe? No, at least not if you're deploying to an iOS device. If you want to use things like Swift Playgrounds, you will need to use macOS Tahoe, but the only way you can do that is by actually reformatting your Mac or dual booting, which is not fun. You can try Parallels, but you won't be very happy with it because, for example, you can't do the USB device pass-through. I don't know why it says that doesn't work on an M1, so you're not even going to be able to run Xcode beta, hit play, and deploy to your iOS device. So yeah. Can you use an iOS 26 simulator? Short answer, no. In fact, maybe I forgot to add this. It doesn't work on Tahoe either, unless you're running on a bare metal, not virtualized installation of Tahoe. If you run in Parallels, it will tell you the model is, it will tell you that the device is not supported. The device is not Apple Intelligence capable because it doesn't know how to virtualize that stuff yet. Any other things you should know? I guess I kind of spoiled this one now, but this one super frustrated me. This is an Apple DTS engineer who was like, okay, after some long thread, they were like, yeah, check in, we'll probably tell you why it's not available. And then, yeah, he already ruled out Apple Intelligence being disabled, and yeah, you have to have it to English and United States, so that was several hours wasted. I apologize if that's a little too small. This guy says, I am running on a simulator on a SwiftUI app, and I keep getting guardrails violations in beta 2. On beta 1, it was fine. You saw a little bit of that today with it just randomly deciding that Korean addresses were unsafe to decompose into structured components. There were also some other interesting things from the threads. Some people were reporting that they got the rate limiting error when the device was in certain states, like either the app was in the background, which, by the way, back to developing on a constrained device, just like if you're developing a live location app, you do need to be careful about battery life and things, and so the system does rate limit you in this case. And And there are others that we will discover as we start putting these in apps, and hopefully Apple will clarify. This was a hilarious anecdote. Someone got a safety violation when asking about purifying water or where they should position their tent when camping. Yeah, I was getting this kind of level of stuff as of beta 3. Beta 4 has solved most of these except those unsafe addresses in South Korea. This I thought was hilarious. I just died laughing. These are some examples. The ones with the green check mark are fine, and the red X's are not. So like size of New York, not allowed. Population of New York, that's cool. Are people in Sweden friendly? Can't ask that one. Do you like Sweden? Nope. So yeah, Apple considers Sweden dangerous apparently. And I got this fun one this afternoon. Yes, I captured this one. You can tell that it's using JSON internally for its generable stuff, which, yeah. So that was funny. They're like, in WWDC videos, they basically say, we've solved this in so many words. And yeah, I was able to get a pretty clear deserialization error here. So yeah, on-device AI, it's necessarily using small models, so adapt your use cases accordingly. The things that Apple Intelligence is using are like a pretty good proxy. It's mostly summarizing. It's not like generating a new photo like DALL-E or something. So yeah, give the model plenty of hints. Give it constraints in the form of your types and your generable struct and the tools that it needs to succeed. Disclaimer again, all demos are current as of what was available in beta 4. This will change. It changed a lot from beta 3 where it was like unusable and I was almost not able to give this talk. So thank you, cool people at Apple for getting that beta 4 out and looking forward for the GA. There's some contact info for me if you want to keep in touch. Any final questions?
Thank you so much. Any last questions? Yeah. Just yeah. Your question is
Is that repo public?
No, it probably can be though. Yeah, I'll drop it. I'll drop it in the cockroach chat. Yeah, we can put a link on YouTube.
A little bit out of this word. Does it remember the previous prompts or like answers?
Excellent question. Excellent question. The question was, does it remember the previous prompt context? The answer is yes if you use the same session. So within the context of the, let me go back to the code. So if you have, so this session here, which Clement correctly pointed out should be a state property instead. So as long as this session is alive, then it will remember the context.
So like it stays on the memory or like the items totally gone off.
Yeah, as soon as the language model session is like freed, then it's gone. You can actually ask for the
Context, right? Then you can compact it and then you can inject it.
yes, prompt caching. Session dot transcript. You can get session dot transcript, and you could use the prompt caching technique that Clement just mentioned to ask the model to summarize the transcript so far, and then you can kind of and start a new session, and then you can kind of cheat and extend your context window. Obviously, there are some limits to how far you can take that, but that kind of thing can work. Yes.
I'm kind of curious that if you like cache or like remember the session ID or the whole foundation model or remember the context is not, even if that is totally off.
No.
I mean, you could save the transcript.
You could save the transcript. You could save the transcript and reinitialize it, but just like when you click regenerate on ChatGPT, it's not. The models have this parameter called a temperature. It's basically like a randomness factor of how random they are. But all models are like, it wouldn't be useful if it was not having some amount of randomness to it. So if you replay the exact same thing just as we have done, you'll get a different result or slightly varying results a lot of times. But if you need to save something for later to restore, like in Swift data or something, then you could just save the session transcript.
Yeah. I
think your phone got some issues.
Yeah, nowadays.
No. Just now?
Yeah, just.
Uh-oh.
No, it's fine. It was just
Yeah.
should fine. But anyway.
Uh,
Any other question? No? Alright, thank you so much. Yeah.